Now, it's been one of the most anticipated comebacks in pop. After 40 years, ABBA are finally back with a new studio album.
The dazzling lights of the 1970s disco era shine bright, and the infectious melodies of ABBA fill stadiums as the world watches four Swedish musicians become pop royalty. Benny Andersson and Annie Frid Lyngstad, once a golden couple in both music and life, stood at the center of it all. But behind the sequence, harmonies, perfectly choreographed performances, and picture-perfect smiles, a storm had been brewing, one that would shake the very foundation of their success. For years, fans believed ABBA's split was simply the result of time, changing trends and personal differences. But now, Benny has broken his silence, revealing a side of Frida the world never truly saw, a side that was complicated, turbulent, and at times deeply destructive. Their love, their music, their friendship, it all unraveled in ways far darker than anyone ever knew. But Frida's conflicts didn't end with Benny. Throughout her career, she experienced clashes, betrayals, and personal struggles that told a far more dramatic story than ABBA's polished image ever suggested. At the heart of it all was her relationship with Benny Andersson. Once deeply in love, they were ABBA's second power couple, their romance mirroring that of Björn Ulvaeus and Agnetha Fältskog. But unlike Björn and Agnetha, whose relationship was famously volatile, Frida and Benny's breakup was defined by bitterness, resentment, and accusations that cut far deeper. When they first met in the late 1960s, Frida was a fiery, independent woman, ambitious, determined to make her mark in the music world. Benny, a musical genius with an ear for melody, saw her charisma and talent as an undeniable force. Together, they built something powerful, a musical empire and a seemingly unbreakable bond. But behind the scenes, cracks had already begun to form. As ABBA's fame skyrocketed, so did the tension. Benny, known for his meticulous, methodical approach, often clashed with Frida's emotional, strong-willed nature. She was passionate and expressive. He preferred control and structure. Creative differences became personal frustrations, and those frustrations soon boiled over. By the early 1980s, Benny's heart had wandered. Rumors of infidelity surfaced. When the truth came out, Frida was devastated, betrayed, humiliated, and furious, not just as a partner, but as an artist who had given everything to ABBA. Their relationship collapsed under the weight of broken trust, and by 1981, it was over. The wounds didn't heal. Even after ABBA split, resentment lingered. Frida saw Benny as cold and detached, a man who discarded their love once he no longer needed it. Benny, in turn, struggled with Frida's unpredictable nature, her fiery temper, and her refusal to simply move on. And then there were the whispers, two beautiful women, one band, and an inevitable rivalry. For years, fans and tabloids speculated that Frida and Agnetha were locked in a silent war, competing for the spotlight. Both women publicly denied it, calling each other friends, sisters, partners in song. But behind the scenes, the truth was more complex. Frida, with her dramatic stage presence, husky voice, and commanding energy, often felt overshadowed by Agnetha's ethereal blonde beauty and iconic vocals. Agnetha was seen as ABBA's golden girl, while Frida was often cast as the supporting voice, the one who had to fight for recognition. Tensions rose in the studio, on tour, in interviews. Who would sing lead? Whose face would grace the album cover? These questions created a rift that never fully healed. By the time ABBA dissolved, Frida and Agnetha had grown distant. They rarely spoke, and while the public believed the group ended on amicable terms, insiders knew better. For all the glamour and fame, Frida Lindsted's life was no fairy tale. Behind the dazzling lights and soaring harmonies was a woman haunted by shadows, by betrayal, grief, and rejection the world never saw. She was born in 1945 as World War II ended and Norway tried to heal from Nazi occupation. Her mother, Sinni Lyngstad, had fallen in love with a German soldier, Alfred Haase. When the war ended, women like Sinni were branded traitors, humiliated, and shunned. Their children, known as Tyskerbarnes, German children, were treated even worse. Frida was seen as a stain on Norwegian blood, a reminder of a painful past. Believing her father had died in battle, Frida's mother fled to Sweden seeking safety and a fresh start. But the trauma followed them. Frida grew up knowing she was unwanted by her homeland. Sweden gave her shelter, but never erased the wounds. She was a girl without a country, a child without a father, a woman always searching for where she belonged. Years later, Frida discovered her father was alive. Their reunion was awkward, cold, and far from the dream she had clung to. There was no joyful embrace, no magical ending, just silence, distance, and a sense of abandonment that never truly left her. That pain seeped into everything, her relationships, her music, her identity. After the heartbreak of Benny, Frida sought a new life, and in 1992 she married Prince Heinrich Russo-Reuss of Plauen, a German aristocrat. To the world, it was a fairy tale come true. ABBA's queen had become a real-life princess, living in a Swiss castle far from the chaos of pop stardom. But even this fairy tale had cracks. Prince Russo was respected, powerful, and controlling. Frida, who had spent her life fighting for independence and self-expression, suddenly found herself bound by strict traditions and silent obedience. The cage she thought she had escaped had returned in another form. She longed for stability, but instead traded freedom for restriction. Just as she began to adjust to her new life, tragedy struck. In 1998, the unthinkable happened. Her beloved daughter, Anne-Lise Lotte, was killed in a car accident. No fame, love, or fortune could prepare a mother for that kind of loss. It shattered Frida. Her daughter had been her anchor, her reason to move forward after everything else had fallen apart. And now she was gone. Frida withdrew from the world. She stopped performing, stopped speaking publicly, stopped wanting to exist in the world that had taken so much from her. She faded from the spotlight, retreating into isolation. The once bold woman who commanded the stage was now silent, grieving not only for her daughter, but for the life she never truly managed to hold on to. The world remembers Frida Lindstad as an icon, a legend, but her real story is one of pain, survival, and resilience. She was born into rejection, rose to fame through determination, but lost nearly everything along the way. Abandoned, betrayed, controlled, and broken, yet she endured. Even in pain, even in silence, the echoes of her voice remain. The world took much from her, but the music she helped create, that was hers forever. For decades, fans saw Frida as the bold, unstoppable force of ABBA. But behind the powerful vocals and fiery red hair was a woman who faced unimaginable struggles. Her battles with Benny, the silent distance with Agnetha, the personal tragedies, all painted a portrait of someone whose life was filled with as much heartbreak as triumph. And now, with Benny Andersson breaking his silence, the world is left to reconsider her legacy. Was she a victim of her past, or did her own fire contribute to her downfall? Was she misunderstood, or equally responsible for the conflicts that shaped her story? The truth, as always, lies somewhere in between. Frida was never just one thing. She was not simply the victim nor the villain. She was a woman made of contradictions, tough yet vulnerable, ambitious yet insecure, loyal yet volatile. In a band that represented polished perfection, she was often the rawest presence, the most emotionally exposed, and that was part of what made her unforgettable. In the studio, her voice could go from soft and haunting to powerful and commanding in the space of a single song. On stage, she was magnetic. But away from the spotlight, Frida often struggled to reconcile her public image with her private battles. Fame had a cost, and for Frida, that cost was steep. The pressure to always appear composed, glamorous, and in control clashed with the reality of a woman still grappling with abandonment, rejection, and a lifetime of emotional scars. Even her greatest success, the global domination of ABBA, came with its own loneliness. The more famous she became, the more isolated she felt. She once described the experience of being on stage, surrounded by thousands, yet feeling completely alone. The roar of the crowd could never drown out the quieter, more painful voices in her mind. The doubts, the grief, the longing for a kind of peace that always seemed just out of reach. After the group split, Frida attempted to reinvent herself, both musically and personally. Her solo work showcased a more mature, introspective artist, but the shadow of ABBA loomed large. No matter how far she tried to run, she could never escape the image the world had carved of her. The glamorous pop star, the mysterious brunette opposite the golden girl. It was a role she played so convincingly that few bothered to ask who she really was underneath it all. Relationships continued to be a battleground. Trust was difficult. Intimacy came with hesitation. Even in her later marriage to Prince Russo, while love existed, so too did the patterns she had spent a lifetime trying to break. For all her strength and defiance, Frida remained haunted by a deep, persistent fear that she would never truly be loved for who she was, not the performer, not the princess, but the woman beneath it all. Yet, in her most private moments, there was a different kind of strength, not the fiery passion the world had seen on stage, but a quieter resilience. She endured. Through loss, betrayal, heartbreak, and isolation, she found ways to survive. Even in grief, she never let it destroy her completely. Her withdrawal from the public eye wasn't defeat, it was protection, a way to reclaim a part of herself that the world had taken for granted. Time has softened many memories, but it has also brought clarity. Looking back now, fans and critics alike are starting to see Frida not just as a performer, but as a person, a woman who gave everything to her art, even when it cost her dearly. A mother, a daughter, a partner, and above all, a survivor. Was she perfect? No. But neither was anyone else in the story of ABBA. What makes Frida's legacy so compelling is not her flawlessness, but her humanity, her ability to rise, fall, and rise again, even if that rise looked different than it once had. And so, as Benny speaks, and history re-examines the past, something becomes clear. The myth of ABBA may always shine with glitter and disco lights, but the story of Frida Lindstad, the real story, is far more enduring. It is one of courage, complexity, and a search for peace in a world that rarely offered it. One thing is certain, the legend of ABBA will never look the same again, and neither will the woman who helped shape it.